at the festival with Alexander McCall Smith, and you're an author, and you've just done your talk here, but welcome to the Isle of Wight. You're on a UK tour and a keen sailor, so I believe this is one of the reasons you wanted to come to Cowes.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here, and obviously anybody who's interested in boats, as I am, is very happy to be in this part of the world. I find whenever I go anywhere like this, I always see what's anchored or moored or tied up on the shore. And last night we had a reception which was very kindly hosted by the squadron, which I'd visited before some years ago, but that was very nice setting for it. So yes, a great pleasure.
And keen racer yourself? Do you ever come racing or take part in Cowes Week?
No, I'm a very inadequate yachtsman. I never race. If I did race, I'd come last by a very long chalk, but I don't do that. Recently, I sold my sailboat, my yacht, and bought instead a motor cruiser, and that's a progression that I think people make when they decide that it's a bit too risky to be out on deck in a Force 7. so I've got something more sedate now, which is very nice. But I still spend a lot of time in the water, and I still charter sailboats when I go abroad, and that's always great fun. I go sailing each year with a group of 6 old friends, and there's nothing to beat it in terms of relaxing and chatting and just enjoying the sea.
Very nice. Now, you're on the road, you're going around the country, you're off to Cheltenham very soon. How important is it for an author to actually meet the actual readers?
Well, I think it's very, not only is it important, it's also great fun. I very much like it. I think as far as the importance is concerned, it's very useful to be able to hear what the readers have got to say about the books, and readers don't hesitate to bring their views to your attention, and that can be extremely useful. So if you find if one of your characters is irritating people, then you can always shade that a bit in future books, and so that's a question of being receptive to what readers feel. But it's also wonderful fun meeting people who enjoy reading about the characters. You feel as if you're meeting somebody with whom you share a good friend, and that's very nice.
You're here today. We're promoting 4 of your books that you've been talking about, and you are a very busy writer. You produce around 4 books a year.
Yes, or even more. I mean, I think this year is probably 6. So I do write quite a lot. I write quite quickly. I'm very fortunate in being able to write quickly. But I find that I've just got the desire to write more of these books. I enjoy it, so I have various series. I write series of books, and so each year I sit down and have another conversation with characters whom I last met the previous year, and it's very rewarding. I find emotionally, I enjoy that.
And the books that you have been promoting here at the moment, if you'd just like to give us a little rundown of them?
Well, there are a number of them. There's the latest novel in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series. That's volume 20 in that Botswana series about Precious Ramotswe. That's called To the Land of Long Lost Friends. There's another book called The Second Worst Restaurant in France, which is volume 2 in my Paul Stewart series. He's a food writer who goes to various places. There's a new departure for me, a Swedish series called The Department of Sensitive Crimes, and that's all about Ulf Vag, who's by way of being a Swedish detective. It's not Scandinavian noir, it's Scandinavian blanc. In other words, nothing really serious happens in it. And then there's the newest book, the latest book in my Scotland Street series, which is called The Peppermint Tea Chronicles, and that's a real serial novel. I publish that chapter by chapter as I write it in the Scotsman newspaper, and then it comes out as a book at the end of that.
You've mentioned several countries there, Sweden, Botswana. Have you been to these countries to get research and the feel of the country?
Yes, I think you'd have to be very careful about writing about somewhere that you've never been to. I think you obviously can use other places as settings for your books, writers have always done that, and often done it to great effect. One thinks of Graham Greene, for example, who had a nose for rather out-of-the-way places and sometimes rather run-down places. There was a certain sort of landscape which was known as a Greenian landscape. I do that. I set my stories in various parts of the world. Quite a few of them take place in Australia, for example, which is a country which I visit frequently. Then Scotland, where I live, probably is the backdrop for most of my books. Botswana, I've set a lot of books there. Obviously, the whole number one Ladies Detective Agency series is set in Botswana, and this new one in Sweden. So yes, you have to be careful that you don't get the country completely wrong. Obviously, if you're setting out just to use it as a backdrop for a book, then you must know a certain amount. You don't need to know it with a great degree of intimacy, but you have to get it vaguely right.
And what's now on the computer or keyboard, could be even a typewriter. You never know these days.
Well, I'm writing volume 2 of my Scandinavian series, so I'm busy with that, and I hope to finish that in 5 or 6 weeks. And then I'll be starting the latest book in my Isabel Dalhousie series, which is set in Edinburgh. So the moment I finish one, I'm afraid I start on the next. But I do enjoy it, and it suits me. So I shall continue, I hope, to do that.
That is good. And if anyone wants further information about you and your books, where should they go?
Well, there's a website, which is www.alexandermccallsmith.co.uk, and that will tell you what I'm up to. There's a Facebook page as well. I suppose if you look for Alexander McCall Smith on Facebook, you'll be taken to that. And there's also there are posts put on, or tweets put on Twitter under my name. So there is usually information about where I'm going to be appearing in book festivals and so on, and generally speaking, what's happening with the books.
Alexander McCall Smith, thank you for joining us on Festival Radio, and thank you for enjoying the island today.
Thank you very much indeed.